was 11:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving night. I was sitting in my car, in a parking lot, with $32 in my account, a half-eaten granola bar, and a garbage bag full of my own clothes. My family had just locked me out of the house I paid for. Not their house, mine. And the worst part? They were still inside, eating my food, watching my TV, sleeping in my beds, laughing. Actually laughing. I could hear it through the window when I walked back to the door to beg. I knocked. My mother looked at me through the glass and turned away. I stood there in the cold for 4 minutes. I counted. And in those 4 minutes, something inside me went completely quiet. Not broken, not sad. Quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before a storm. By the next morning, every single one of them had lost everything. And I didn't have to lay a single finger on any of them. Let me take you back, because for you to understand what happened that night, you need to understand what I built. My name is Daniel. I'm 31 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed that family was everything. I grew up poor. Not tight budget poor. I mean holes in your shoes in January poor. My dad left when I was 9. My mom raised me and my 2 older brothers, Marcus and Troy, on a nurse's aide salary that barely covered rent. So I worked. Hard. Harder than anyone I knew. By 24, I had my real estate license. By 27, I owned 3 rental properties and a house in a quiet suburb outside of Atlanta. Nothing flashy, but mine. Every single brick, paid for with 5 a.m. mornings and missed weekends. And because I loved my family, because I believed in them, I brought them with me. I moved my mother into the main house, rent-free. I gave Marcus a job managing one of my rental properties. I co-signed Troy's car loan when no bank would touch him. I was the foundation, the one everyone called when something went wrong. My girlfriend at the time, Priya, she used to say, "Daniel, you're not their brother, you're their safety net." I told her she was wrong. She wasn't wrong. But I was so desperate to be the man my father never was, to hold something together, that I mistook being needed for being loved. For 3 years, I poured everything into that house and that family. Holiday dinners, family vacations I planned and paid for, birthdays, emergencies, car repairs, medical bills. 3 years. And on the one night I needed them, the night everything in my own life was falling apart, I found out exactly what 3 years of giving actually bought me. Nothing. It started about 6 weeks before Thanksgiving. I'd been under enormous stress. One of my rental properties had a major plumbing failure, $40,000 in damage, most of it not covered by insurance. I was stretched thin, sleeping 4 hours a night, barely eating. I came home one Tuesday evening and found Marcus and Troy sitting at my kitchen table with a man I didn't recognize. They introduced him as a family friend. His name was Gerald. He was a property developer. I shook his hand. I smiled. I made coffee. And then I went to my room and I listened through the door. They were discussing my rental properties, specifically what they'd be worth if they were sold. Quickly, to the right buyer. Gerald was the buyer. I didn't say anything that night. I told myself I'd misheard, that it was innocent, that my family, the people I had carried, would never. But something shifted in me, a small, cold awareness. I started paying attention. Over the next 2 weeks, I found a folder on Marcus's laptop. He'd left it open on the kitchen counter. Inside were my property deeds, photographs of the properties, estimated sale values, a draft contract with Gerald's development company. I found text messages. Marcus had left his phone on the charger and walked out. Messages between him, Troy, and my mother. Planning, scheming, coordinating. There was even a message from my mother that said, "And I need you to hear this clearly. Daniel won't fight it. He never does. He loves us too much." She was right about one thing. I had loved them too much. Past tense. Because what I pieced together over those 2 weeks was this. Marcus, as the property manager, had access to some of my legal documents. He and Troy had consulted with Gerald, who had connections to a predatory title company, about a plan to transfer ownership of 2 of my properties using forged signatures on a quitclaim deed. They were going to do it quietly, file it while I was distracted by the plumbing crisis. By the time I noticed, the transfers would be complete. My brothers, my mother, the people I drove to doctor's appointments, the people I stayed up with when they cried. I went to my car and I sat there for a long time. And then I made a decision. I was not going to confront them. Not yet. I was going to let them think they had me. I want you to understand something about the way I operated in those next few weeks. I smiled at breakfast. I asked how their days were. I brought home groceries. I watched football with Troy on Sunday like nothing was wrong. But every night, after they went to sleep, I was building something they couldn't see. First call I made, my attorney, a real estate and fraud attorney named Karen Osei, who I'd worked with on a property dispute 2 years prior. I told her everything. She told me to document everything and touch nothing they were planning to move. We quietly filed a fraud alert with the county recorder's office, meaning any attempt to transfer title on my properties would be flagged and frozen immediately. Gerald's little quit-claim scheme? Dead before it started. Then I worked with Karen to have Marcus formally removed as property manager, replaced with a licensed management company. Done quietly, through paperwork, effective in 30 days. I contacted my bank and restructured every account Marcus or Troy had any secondary access to. Closed them. Opened new ones. Transferred everything. Now here's the part that people asked me about the most. The house. My house. Where my mother lived rent-free for 3 years. There had never been a lease. Never a formal rental agreement. Just love and trust and an open door. Karen informed me that in the state of Georgia, a month-to-month occupancy without a lease can be terminated with 60 days written notice. I drafted the notice on November 3rd. I didn't deliver it yet. I was waiting. I want to be honest with you. There were moments in those weeks where I almost broke. Where I almost walked into the living room and just asked them, why? Just, why? But every time I felt that urge, I'd remember my mother's text message. He loves us too much. They had calculated on my love being their weapon against me. So I put my love away. Thanksgiving was chosen deliberately. It was the one day of the year my whole family was together, comfortable, fed, and completely unsuspecting. It was the day I chose to let them show me exactly who they were. And they did not disappoint. Thanksgiving dinner was almost peaceful. My mother cooked. Troy carved the turkey. Marcus made jokes. Gerald had even been invited. He sat at the far end of my table, in my house, eating my food. I looked around that table and I felt something I can only describe as grief. Not anger. Grief for the family I thought I had. After dinner, I asked Marcus and Troy to come to the living room. I told them I wanted to talk about the properties, that I'd been thinking about restructuring and wanted their input. Marcus's face lit up. He thought I was walking into his plan. He actually relaxed, started talking confidently about the market and timing and opportunities. I let him talk for about 90 seconds. Then I slid 2 envelopes across the coffee table. One for Marcus, his termination as property manager, effective that week, along with a civil fraud notice prepared by Karen outlining exactly what we had documented. One for Troy, detailing that his car loan co-signature was being formally withdrawn from renewal, and that any further financial entanglement between us was severed. The room went completely silent. Marcus looked at the envelope like it was going to bite him. Troy's face went gray. My mother walked in from the kitchen. She looked at my face and she knew, immediately, the way a person knows when they've been caught. She started to say my name. Daniel. I held up my hand. I told her, I loved you. I loved all of you. And you looked at that love and you saw a target. Then I handed her the 3rd envelope, the 60-day notice to vacate. The shouting started immediately. Marcus called me ungrateful. Troy said I was tearing the family apart. My mother cried, and I won't pretend that didn't hurt because it did. Even then, even knowing everything. Gerald quietly got up, grabbed his coat, and left. He didn't say a word. He knew exactly what that fraud notice meant for him. I picked up my prepared overnight bag from the front closet. I had packed it 2 days before. I walked to the door. My mother was still crying. Marcus was still yelling. I turned around one last time. "You had a good thing, and you burned it yourself." Then I walked out. They locked the door behind me. I think they thought it was a bluff, that I'd come back like I always did. I drove to the hotel I had booked 3 days prior. I ordered room service. I slept better than I had in 6 weeks. The 60 days passed. My mother moved in with a cousin. She called me twice. I listened. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just told her the door wasn't open right now. Marcus faced a formal fraud investigation. Gerald's title company was flagged by the State Real Estate Commission. I was told the investigation expanded beyond just my case. Troy lost the car 6 months later, couldn't make the payments on his own. And me? I'm okay. Some days I'm better than okay. Some days I still drive past that house and feel something I can't fully name. I think what hurts the most, even now, isn't the betrayal, it's the calculation. The fact that they sat around and looked at my love and figured out how to use it. That takes a kind of coldness I still don't fully understand. But here's what I know. I built everything I have from nothing, without a father, without a blueprint, without anyone handing me a single thing. And I can do it again. I already am. Priya and I are still together. She never said, "I told you so," not once. She just made me coffee the morning after Thanksgiving and sat next to me while I stared out the window. That's what real love looks like. If you're out there carrying people who are secretly weighing your worth, please hear me when I say this. Being someone's foundation doesn't mean being their floor mat. You can love people and protect yourself. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop. Stop catching people who are pushing you off the ledge. My name is Daniel, and this was my confession. If this story hit you somewhere real, you know what to do. Subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop in the comments, have you ever loved someone who calculated on that love? I read every single one.